On my own this week, well, this episode, I won't be later in the week. We've got a couple of people on. Steve-O's going to come on again, do maybe one with me and him or me and Javier again. I thought it was quite funny on Sunday. I've got Pixel Hunter. I think Andrew's coming back on. I've got Alan I need to get on. We've discussed him coming on Thursday to talk about this, the famous article now on the Win 11 blog, which, to be fair, as it's sort of calmed down and what he was aiming for, as much as there was sort of the initial hoo-ha, it's calmed down and the conversation has opened regarding the game. So let's hope that's going in the right direction. So sort of looking forward to him coming on. Not sure if Brian's going to be on B-Man again, but I'll put the feelers out tonight and tomorrow and see where we go. We'll definitely have a podcast on at 8 o'clock on Thursday as normal. I'm doing a sort of one-off podcast tonight, mainly because it's a big day in Manchester. I understand the people who follow the podcast and that, and there's a few allegiances to other teams. It's probably nothing to do, or you know, with yourselves, but it's to do with like this, the 60th anniversary of Munich today, the Munich Air Disaster. As a Manchester United fan and season ticket holder, lived in Stretford, Old Trafford, Furswood all my life. I just want to do a quick sort of podcast, just a bit of a tribute. I ended up going to the memorial today at Old Trafford because we live really close to the ground. I have all my life, you know, so we ain't no glory hunters and we ain't no you know, cockneys or anything, as the cliche goes with United fans. You know, my whole family are Reds, so you know, bear with me on this. There's going to be no gaming talk tonight, so apologies. It's just sort of drop it in there. So yeah, the thing was, I come out of the ground. They had the memorial. Fergie was there. Jose Mourinho was there. All the players were there. Some of them I wasn't very pleased with, I must admit, because they sat there in the, you know, it was snowing and everything. And I've got a few pictures and stuff that I'll put on the social media. But it panned to some of the players and they sat there with blankets on and stuff. And I'm just like, you're just totally missing the point of what the day is, considering what them people must have gone through in that plane crash. You know, total separation as always. Some of the players, and this isn't going to sit there slagging the players up, but you could just tell they didn't want to be there. They were just going by the club's obligations, making it look like they were interested when they obviously weren't. But after the memorial, there was some good. Well, there was a good speeches. It was a bit like a mass, really. As someone who's grew up Catholic, doesn't go to mass or anything like that, but you know, sat through many a mass in my time. It was I think it's like a C of E type mass, Church of England. It is what it is, but it was a nice touch, screens up, everything. It was really good. You know, lump in the throat job, seeing that. And I must admit, when things like this happen, like we had the season ticket, and these times there where you're like, you know, it's cost a lot of money. You go into all the games, and you know, we ain't no glory hunters by any stretch of the imagination. We've had the season ticket for a long time now, and it's something I always wanted to take Jordan with. But you have them doubts, and I had them doubts the other day where you'd like speaking to my brother, because he doesn't live around in Manchester now, lives up in Llandudno, like, look, we might need to look at possibly getting rid of it. And then when things like that, this happen, you realise why you support that football team. And that's not because it's Manchester United. Anybody who supports any team, you know, these things sort of bring everyone back together. And you realise that, I remember 10 years ago being at Old Trafford and standing outside, you know, and they were playing the Flowers of Manchester on, and everyone was stood there sort of in minute silence. So it's gone really quick. And obviously that was quite a pivotal year because we won the Champions League in 2008. It seems to be everything that sort of signifies something to do with Munich is important. Like when I listened today, when we won it in 99, it was Sir Matt Busby's 90th birthday, it would have been. And then obviously it was 50 years from Munich in 2008 when we won it. So you never know. I can't see us overhauling 13 points with City. But yeah, what I would talk about is what I got asked the question outside by a guy who stood there in a really like a big tripod, microphone come over. I could sort of see the microphone head, and it looked Spanish, to be honest. So anyway, I smiled at him, and I was going over to Sam's work, which is right next to Old Trafford, Sierra and Jordan. And he just said to me, you know, can we interview? And I said, yeah, his English was really good. So I said, yeah, sure. You know what I'm like. I can talk dribble on this. So talking about United is going to be, you know, it's no problem. So he just said, like, what does it mean as a fan to, you know, with the Munich thing and that? And obviously growing up, my dad was a season ticket holder years ago. Well, he used to go to all the games home and away. for a long time. It took us when we were younger, in the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s. And then as you're growing up, we had a video of Manchester United's official history was. And it played up to about 1987, 88. I think just as Fergie came in, but it sort of went back from obviously the Newton Heath days all the way through to sort of World War II, the bombings at Old Trafford, to obviously Munich, and then obviously Sir Matt Rising again with another team winning it 68. And it's the sort of thing that when I was a kid, I didn't understand that. You understand what it was about, but didn't understand the significance of why United became such a global brand. With other people, obviously, love to hate. People hate United. I understand that. There's no love lost between Liverpool and City fans, things like that. Any team, really. Fergie created a monster, really, in the early 90s. That sort of lasted for 25 years. Yeah, we haven't won the league for a few years, but it's all on the foundation of what happened in Munich. And in some respects, why people have a place in the heart for United. Whether you agree with that or not, I totally understand. Allegiances aside, it sort of put football in the UK on the map, unfortunately, something as tragic as that. So as growing up, I understood it from like my dad's point of view. My granddad, who's from Belfast, he came over, listened to stories about him. He used to go and watch United. He lived in Old Trafford, and he's always been a United fan, but he would go to Main Road every now and again, because obviously in them days it was home and away. My granddad's 80 now, so he's a United fan through and through, but he would now and again go and watch City. And when you listen to the stories of when it happened, and that he was over here from Belfast, and then you listen to like my old man and stuff, and he was only 2 when it happened. He was born 56, so and he went in the 60s. Dennis Law and people like that were his heroes, but they were like in the rebuilding process. But just seeing what them guys must have gone through is a hell of a thing to experience. And I just thought I'd come on and explain sort of what it meant to me. It's not trying to be somber. I know obviously it's quite upbeat usually, the podcast. There's a lot of swearing. I'm trying not to swear, just out of respect really, more than anything. But yeah, it's quite thingy in the whole city. Like I remember in 2008 we played City, and we had the retro kits on, and City beat us 2-1. Ericsson was the manager. I think Benjani scored for them. I don't know if he got 2 of them, but they were 2-0 up anyway. I don't know if the sort of emotion of the event got to our players, and we got beat 2-1. I'm not sure what the gigs he scored, but it was a thingy. So it's like you go to see that today, and what the whole thing's about, and you read up about how those people must have coped. Sir Matt Busby being in hospital for 3 months, not knowing that his team had been sort of decimated, lost, 8 of these players. Duncan Edwards is obviously he's sort of like the figurehead of the people who lost their lives because he was such a good player, and everyone else says it. And obviously I understand with things like this, he's rose-tinted glasses, but everybody said how good that guy was, and and he's got his statue up in Dudley, where he's from, down there in Wolverhampton. So it's just pretty sad, really. It's not, I'm not really sure what to say to put it into a podcast, because it was just something I thought it'd be nice just to come on and talk a bit about the background of myself, not because, the podcast is what it is, a contextual podcast, as we know, is built on gaming and my love-hate, and Steve-O's love-hate, and Andrew's love-hate, and Javier's, and whoever's come on and been a guest or whatever on a certain computer game, Brian, everyone, it's a constant. But being football fans and then having a computer game, that was on that level at one point, that's obviously where, it's a bit like what's happened with United the last few years. We've not winning the league, we've been winning trophies. There's far worse teams out there who've gone through worse droughts than we have. But it's quite unbelievable how, I suppose, you get spoiled because of the success we've had. But yeah, it's quite a somber day today. I'm not that I'm not being bloody miserable or anything. It's just, I think it deserved a bit of airtime on the podcast. I thought they put it all together well at Old Trafford. There were screens outside. There was like a constant TV loop of interviews. Like at one point I'd seen it on Sky anyway, but they're interviewing Duncan Edwards' 2 cousins who are still alive, and who going to the football pitches that he used to play at in Dudley, his statue. He went to the graves of some of the players, talking to their families and stuff. And then he had like Jimmy Murphy's son. I saw that on Granada News last night. He was talking about, you know, he couldn't even speak. When he asked him about certain players, I think it was Duncan Edwards, he burst into tears. You know, and obviously anyone who knows the history about United, Sir Matt Busby quite rightly gets all the plaudits. But if it wasn't for Jimmy Murphy, there wouldn't be a Manchester United, because that man sort of saved the club in some respects, because he ended up getting a lot of players from other teams, you know, putting the word out there. We got offered players from Real Madrid, things like that. Liverpool, City helped us, Everton, all local teams, whatever the allegiances is and how the hatred is now. Back then it was a lot different. But Jimmy Murphy resurrected that, and I know there's a book coming out soon regarding him, and it's quite interesting. It will be quite interesting to read, to understand what he did to get Manchester United back on the map, basically, and back playing football. So that's quite a thing. He wasn't really mentioned today because obviously the tragedy-wise, you know, he was part of the support staff and things like that. You know, so it's a good. It's not a good experience, but it's a good to know your history. You know, most kids don't know anything about United. You know, before 1993. I mean, I was born 78, so obviously, probably the first cup final I can remember realistically is probably 85 when Norman Whiteside scored against Everton. Even though in 83 we won Brighton, but I was too young. I was only 5, so I wouldn't have remembered it. I remember my old man in Blanis got to watch United Everton being in. He said he was in a pub full of Everton fans, and he come back levered because we'd won 1-0. You know, because obviously Everton were the team then, weren't they? They like were winning the league and stuff. Andy Gray and all that. They had a great team. So yeah, it was a good day. A good experience, nice sort of sobering experience, really. Just get away from all the sort of rubbish and BS that comes with everyday life, really, and you sort of realise how lucky you are, because things like that, you know, the 1 in a million chance of something like that happened. And seeing Bobby Charlton there and Harry Gregg, and obviously anyone who knows the stories, Harry Gregg rescued a lot of people that day, and you know, he doesn't like the sort of label a hero, but he you know how everyone reacts in different situations, but he literally dragged people away from the burning plane and things like that. And you know, he was there today, and well-respected guy, sat behind Fergie and stuff. And then he obviously had Bobby Charlton there with his wife. You know, when you see the interviews, it's sad. So I think it's something that needs not celebrating, but sort of the memorial side of it every year, really. Obviously, there's other tragedies within other football clubs, as we know, and you know, everyone pays the respect. Every club around the world has paid the respect. You know, rivalry's gone out the window. So yeah, it was just a great experience, really. I think you know, I got into loving some of the players because of my dad when I was older. To understand, like Dennis Law and George Best, because obviously that was like the swinging 60s, LB, old, you know, George Best there, got a Benfica and getting all them goals, and, you know, taking plaudit after plaudit when he had Dennis Law there scoring the goals, and Bobby Charlton, and them three are synonymous, and that's obviously why the United Trinity's there outside Old Trafford. But it's the foundations of the whole club. Sir Matt Busby's beliefs is there, and I said it in the interview today to the Brazilian TV. Is you know, at the end of the day, people slate Mourinho, and I understand that the game has evolved and things change, but he, you know, we are playing football to a point. We are the swashbuckling style, but we weren't that style when, you know, before Fergie sort of retired. We weren't barnstorming games every single game. That's just a bit of an urban myth as someone who went to the games. There was games there where we were good and we turned up. There's a lot, I'd say, towards Fergie's sort of last couple of seasons, there was a lot more games where we turned up against the big teams than we have done since he left. There's no doubt about that. And in Mourinho's record's pretty poor at the moment. So it's just it sort of turns it all on its head, and United even give us a free cup of tea, which it was unbelievable, because when I saw the kiosks open, I was expecting them to be charging us, but to be fair, we were there, got a free brew, and you know, it was all in the East Stand, which is the old K Stand and scoreboard paddock. The screens were sort of, and then on the backdrop of where I usually sit in the Stretford end, or where me and Jordan or Adam and Kyle, there was a big flag there, you know, "We'll Never Die" sort of thing. I've got a few pictures and stuff, which is like, you know, the song "We'll Never Die," keep the red flag flying now because Man United will never die. That's the song. But yeah, it's a good trip out, a good trip, and I go to Old Trafford every single day because Jordan works there, Sam works there, so I literally you take it for granted until, you know, obviously I'm going to the match or I'm going to something like this. You know, it's unbelievable. You don't realise the significance and importance of living so close to such a historical place as well, and there's so many good memories that I've got inside that stadium, and obviously there's going to be bad ones, but it's something that you wouldn't change as a fan for the world. And I think any team that you support, you know, you're blinded by your love, and it's hard to describe your love. But listening to some of the stuff there today, and I wasn't even born. It's like 20 years before I was even born, and you listen to it, and you've got a connection to the club because you know what it means to everyone. So yeah, it was a great experience, and something that I'll definitely keep doing. I know Jordan was gutted because she wanted to come, but she was in work. Unfortunately, she couldn't get out of it. And she's as, you know, passionate United fan as I am. So yeah, that's. I don't think there's any more really to say. The only thing I wanted to do, if you can sort of, I don't know, sort of humour me on this, is read out the Flowers of Manchester, and then I'm done. And it's only a quick blast of a podcast, just out of pure respect. No, there's no talk about the famous game that I get told off for talking about every single podcast. So just what when I find it, I just wanted to read this out and say thanks everybody for supporting the podcast. Things are going so well. I'm getting a lot of good friends that I've met by doing this, by playing games is something that I'm always passionate about, and doing something like this, just even come on for 20 minutes and say thank you. You know, there's no point me doing an hour podcast because we're just going over the same thing. I just want to come on, pay my respects to them people who died. And I've just want to read, this is called The Flowers of Manchester. It was actually sung today at the event, and that'll be me done, and I'll say no more. So thank you. And then on Thursday, we'll be back as normal, back to the hijinks. I'm sure there'll be plenty of swearing on my part, as always. So please bear with me. And once I finish this, that'll be the end of the podcast for this episode. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Thank you. And if you don't support Manchester United, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pee anybody off. I just thought it was relevant to who I am and what I'm about and my love for that club. So thank you. The Flowers of Manchester. In fact, I'll put it here so you can actually see. One cold and bitter Thursday in Munich, Germany. Eight great football stalwarts conceded victory. 8 men will never play again who met destruction there. The flowers of English football, the flowers of Manchester. Matt Busby boys were flying, returning from Belgrade. This great United family, all masters of their trade. The pilot of the aircraft, the skipper, Captain Thane. 3 times they tried to take off and twice turned back again. The 3rd time down the runway, disaster followed close. There was slush upon the runway and the aircraft never rose. It ploughed into the marshy ground, it broke, it overturned, and 8 of the team were killed as the blazing wreckage burned. Roger Byrne and Tommy Taylor, who were capped for England's side, and Ireland's Billy Whelan and England's Jeff Bent died. Mark Jones and Eddie Coleman and David Pegg also, they all lost their lives as it ploughed on through the snow. Big Duncan went to, with an injury to his brain, and Ireland's brave Jackie Blanchflower will never play again. The great Matt Busby lay there, the father of his team. 3 long months passed by before he saw his team again. The trainer, coach and secretary, a member of the crew, also 8 sporting journalists who with United flew. And one of them, Big Swifty, who we will never forget, the finest English keeper that ever graced the net. Oh, England's finest team, its record truly great. Its proud success is mocked by a cruel turn of fate. 8 men will never play again who met destruction there. The flowers of English football, the flowers of Manchester.